Hey, good morning.
Hi.
Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes on the Daybreak show. Got a great conversation about the Mason Conservation District. Mark Mead on the call here, the Stewardship Forester. Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a great day to be out here in Shelton.
It is a beautiful area that we live in. Let's talk a little bit about those who may not be familiar with the Conservation District, how it works and what you guys do, and then we'll talk about a program you got coming up.
So if most people relate the conservation districts with working with agricultural land, especially out in the big dairy populations, as well as doing out in eastern Washington and like with the larger farms. But actually, every county has a conservation district in the country, and the conservation district's primary role is to help out private property owners find out about how to take care of their land, the natural resources on their land. And our primary goal in Mason Conservation District is to help promote sustainable use through conservation and restoration of the natural resources on their lands. And the main reason that we have a job is that people need help. And that's what we do is we provide advice on agricultural issues, on farming issues, on water quality issues, but also on things like stormwater that we're talking about. And most recently here, what we've been talking about is forestry. And as you know, in this region, forestry is a big deal. And there are major landowners that have foresters and they take care of it in the industry. But we have a program here that we now have 2 foresters working on it for small non-industrial forest landowners. Which if I get a chance, I'd like to talk to you about a little bit more. But we also work with on engineering issues for different entities as in a partnership or through grants that we get. And the one that I'd like to talk to you about today is a grant that we have that we're working with the city of Shelton on what they call GSI, Green Stormwater Infrastructure, which is basically building things like putting in storm gardens, rain gardens in front of people's houses, helping the design of places where stormwater can be infiltrated instead of running into the sand-bearing streams. And then the other thing is a program that we're really trying to promote right now, which is just in the city of Shelton. So I hope your listeners it's not something we can do everywhere. It's just funded just in the city of Shelton in what we call the UGA, urban growth area. And we're buying trees for people to put in front of their properties or on the properties.
And so when I think about some of the things you were just talking about, one of the places that really kind of keyed my attention in there is the PUD3. They worked very hard on that parking lot area for the storm and the rains and the gardens, and they've got it all figured out in there. Is that kind of what you're talking
Yes, that's exactly. And actually our engineer has been working on that. We have an engineer that's helped them out with that. We're doing pretty much this. We're trying to do pretty much the same thing. We have through that same grant I was talking about for the city of Shelton. We're looking at doing pretty much the same thing with the city's municipal parking area downtown, where we're going to help them with some of the planting and design of that planting. Another great place would be like if you're the new YMCA. If you look at the what we'd be putting in terms of landscaping and the water, the stormwater retention ponds and the like there, that's exactly what we're looking at. There's some really great programs. And so that was what we were funded to do, to assist the city of Shelton stormwater program and to provide some information to them that they may not have had the resources to do. And so that's kind of what the conservation district does, is we're kind of come in and help out where people don't have the resources to do specific things, or we get grants to do it and help them out.
What would planting an urban tree do to help all this in the city of Shelton?
So, it's kind of interesting because I am the forester out here for Mason, Thurston, and now we'll have another forester that'll be coming on will also be covering Kitsap counties to work with forested landowners. But I also used to work as an urban forester, which is pretty much the same thing, but one tree at a time. And so taking care of a lot of people know it as arboriculture. And So what trees do in an urban environment is they provide pretty much the same thing they do in a forested environment, wild environment, except they do it kind of all by themselves. And so one of the things that they do is they intercept rainwater. And that's not just the idea that they suck in water as part of the transpiration or breathing in and out, but as they do, but the water actually hits the trees and the leaves and stops, and then it gets slowly drops down onto the ground and then can be absorbed a little easier into the ground.
Okay.
The other thing that trees do is they suck the water up out of the ground as part of their bringing nutrients up from the bottom, from the soils, up through their root systems and up into the trees, storing some of that in the trees, but then also it goes out into the leaves and then it transpires out and becomes moisture as they breathe out carbon dioxide or breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. So what that does in an urban environment is that most of the time you have flat surfaces that are impervious, meaning the water can't go through them. And trees help intercept that water before it hits that impervious surface. They help absorb the water and transpire that water back up into the air. And then the other thing that they do, which is they actually physically, in some cases, they physically restrain the water. And that's just by the root systems themselves sucking up the water. And so they do a much better job, like say per square foot than say your grass does in helping out with that. One of the most important things, as you might imagine, for an urban tree is that the leaves or the branches, and some people don't like this idea because it goes into the gutters, but if we get those branches overhanging impervious surfaces, so when it rains, and that physical stopping of the water by the branches and the leaves stops that water from hitting the impervious surface, the road, and going into the gutter and then going down the streams and then overflooding your streams. So the more canopy you have, especially overhanging roads, the better off you are in terms of stormwater. And it helps to intercept that. Now, in some areas, we're kind of blessed with a Mediterranean climate here in the Pacific Northwest, and we all know this. We get our rains right now, from as my dad, who was from the Midwest, liked to say, yeah, from like August to like June, that's when you have rain. But we get most of our rain right now in the middle of the winter, when unfortunately those big broadleaf trees that we like to see in urban setting have lost their leaves and so one of the things that we're trying to promote is more stormwater friendly type trees, so evergreens, broadleaf trees that are evergreens like magnolias and conifer trees. Now, there's a lot to be said on both sides, and everybody has an opinion about that, but we're offering 6 different trees, and what we'd like people to be able to understand is that the goal is to try and help reduce stormwater flow. And so it's important, and that stormwater flow is not just the physical impact, as we've seen with all the slides and flooding that we've had recently, but it's also the ecological impact, because all that water goes right down into our major salmon-bearing streams and impacts the health of those. So you can just imagine all that oil and tire dust and brake dust gets washed off, goes down into the system, and it ends up out into our waterways. So that's one of the reasons that we're trying to improve and have more trees. One of the things that we don't have too much of a problem with here in Shelton and in Mason County right now is air quality, because we don't have the population in terms of cars. Although a lot of people might argue that downtown Shelton, they stayed too long on the lights, but having made the commute from Tacoma to Seattle every day for a number of years, I don't think we have too much to worry about here in terms of congestion and air pollution. But it is still important for air quality in terms of things like particulate matter, and when we have major industries that are producing smogs, or we have other things, trees are a really good way to do that, to filter out the air particulates. And so they also, and this is something that's really Could be up to debate, but most national studies have said that a tree in front of a house increases the value of that house by at least 5 to 10%. So depending on the tree.
Where folks can go to find out how to get these vouchers, masoncd.org is the Conservation District's website.
Right.
You can go to the native plant sale, or you can go to masoncd.org/urban tree. I'll put the links, of course, in the show notes here. You mentioned 6 different types of trees. Are they up to the preference of the person who lives there? And then where would you encourage folks to plant these trees? As we talk here, it seems like the closer to a sidewalk or the closer to a road, the better. And
yeah. So yes, just contact us at masoncd.org. Go to the native plant sale, and then you'll be able to get contacted with Jen, TW as we call her, and Thurman Williams, and she will be able to direct you towards that program. What it is a voucher program with 4 of our nurseries in the region, in the area, and you can go down and select a tree from that. And as I said, there's a selection that's more oriented. It's not as ornamental as some people would like, but it's more oriented towards that, towards the stormwater impacts. The big issue for us is that we, unfortunately, as I said, we have to focus on in the city of Shelton. But we would more than happy to take more calls and more get people that are interested in the program. Through this same program, we're looking to develop an overall urban forestry program. The other thing is that where you want to plant those trees, we do have video online. We do have to help you out finding where you want to plant that tree, how you want to take care of it, remembering that it needs to be watered thoroughly at least once a week during the first couple of years, summers, because we do get kind of droughty out here. But, number one thing is you don't want to drown it, but you also don't want to neglect it, and you want to tailor that for a couple, 3 years. The other thing with your trees, I suggest people use the old nomenclature, look up, look down, look all around. So remember, the tree that you're buying is not going to be, it's just like a puppy. It's not going to be small forever, and it's going to get bigger. So look around. If you're planting it close to a sidewalk or something like that, you might want to think about where those roots are going to go. You're thinking of the same with, and so there are ways we can talk to the individual customer about that. I've noticed there's not an exceptional amount of sidewalks in the city of Shelton, so that could be better. But the other thing that you might want to get a handle on is where your sewer lines are, so that the root system doesn't get into there. And then the other thing, just take care of them. Like that. Pardon me?
811, that's the number you're supposed to call before you start doing those types of things?
Yes, 811. Yes, please call 811, dial before you dig. And that's all included on that same website, the native plant sale, and we'll direct you to a little training video on how to plant a tree, how to select a tree.
And as I look through some of the different types, like the mountain hemlock and the strawberry, this is the first 2 on there. These are big when you get them. So
yes, these are 1.5 inch caliper. What that means is that they're probably going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 feet tall, depending on the species. And we selected them out based upon their growth. They're not going to get too big. So like the mountain hemlock is not your native hemlock. It's not a Pacific hemlock, so it's not going to grow as tall. It's got some of the same characteristics. That strawberry tree, which is actually it's very similar to our madrona. It's in the same family, actually. It does bear edible fruit, which is interesting. And it has kind of the same characteristics of a madrona. It's got that same bark. It's got the same leaf, but it doesn't grow much bigger than, say, about 20 feet, 25 feet. So what we're looking for is trees that are, going to work well. There are a couple tall trees if you got a place that you want one. And the thing that we worked real hard on this, work with the local nurseries to get that on, and the nurseries will be listed as well, and the species will be listed as well.
There's some opportunities now through February 28th, but it is a limited number. So folks are encouraged to get on the website and apply for that free tree voucher as soon as they can. Again, at masoncd.org. We'll put the links to this. here in the show notes. Again, Mark Mead as Stewardship Forester for the Conservation District. I think we're going to leave it right there, but we'll get you back on later to talk about some of the other programs you and the district have.
Appreciate that.
Rest of the year, as it seems like people are starting to get back out there after what a crazy year it was last year. So it is important now planting that urban tree. It says right here for City of Shelton residents, and planting trees helps keep homes cool during the hot days and helps collect stormwater during the winter, buffer air, noise, and improve the health. So some great benefits to planting a tree in this on your property in the city of Shelton. Mark, good to see you, talk with you.
Thank you for your time, Jeff. Really appreciate your efforts.